Welcome to a Powerless Mage presence.
Thank you so much for having me. I am really excited to dig into this today.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we are really going to get into the weeds today on a deep dive into an essay called Pizzas and Sad Cavemans, The Emotional Value. And, we want to establish right off the bat that you are tuned into a Powerless Mage presence, and we have a very specific mission for this conversation.
Right. Because we know exactly where a lot of you listening are at right now.
Mm.
You are feeling stuck.
Exactly.
You are dealing with this daily dissatisfaction, right? You sit there wondering why you just can't seem to stick to your own goals.
It is so common. I mean, you have perfectly good food in the fridge. You have this strict budget you swore you're going to stick to, and yet you just spent $30 on a Wednesday night delivery pizza. Why?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question.
Right. So today we are going to prove to you that you aren't weak. You aren't lacking discipline, and you certainly aren't irrational. In fact, your biology is simply executing a highly sophisticated survival mechanism that, well, just happens to be hijacking your bank account.
Which is such a massive relief to hear, honestly.
It really is. So if you woke up this morning with a mental list of goals, like eating healthy, saving money, working on that big project, or just, finally managing your temper, only to watch all those plans completely disintegrate by 3 in the afternoon, you are in exactly the right place.
Because it is a profoundly frustrating cycle. You know exactly what you should do, logically and practically. But when the moment of truth arrives, you do the exact opposite.
You really do.
And the aftermath is always identical, isn't it? It's this heavy wave of guilt, some lingering shame, and this deeply ingrained cultural belief that you are simply defective, that you lack willpower.
But today, we are going completely off that script. We're dismantling that entire framework of self-blame. This isn't another motivational lecture telling you to just try harder. It is a complete biological deconstruction of why you do what you do.
Absolutely. The objective here is a total paradigm shift.
Yeah.
We have to completely redefine how you view your own emotions.
Yes. We're going to stop treating them as these inconvenient, annoying moods that ruin your productivity.
Right, and start recognizing them as the ultimate biologically hardwired tools for your personal well-being and life-changing solutions.
So before we get into the heavy machinery of the neuroscience and the psychology today, I want to plant a seed in your mind. Think about a recent time you sabotaged your own plans. What was the hidden need driving that choice?
That is the exact question we have to answer. And to do that, we need to look at the battlefield where this self-sabotage actually takes place. The material opens with a scenario that is so painfully universal, it feels like it was pulled directly from a hidden camera in any of our kitchens.
Oh, the Wednesday pizza trap. Let's break this down vividly. Picture this. It is Wednesday evening. You just finished a grueling day of work. You are mentally drained, physically sluggish, and you walk into your kitchen.
Just completely exhausted.
Completely. You open the refrigerator door, and sitting right there on the middle shelf is a perfectly portioned meal you prepped on Sunday.
Let's say it's chicken and broccoli, or a hearty vegetable soup.
Right, some healthy broccoli soup. It is nutritious. You already paid for the ingredients, you spent your precious weekend hours cooking it, and crucially, the biological clock on that Tupperware is ticking loudly.
It really is.
If you do not eat it tonight, it is going to spoil and end up in the trash. The logical, rational part of your brain is presenting an airtight, irrefutable case. It is screaming, "Eat the food in the fridge!"
Exactly. From a purely rational standpoint, the math is entirely in favor of the broccoli soup. If you ignore that food, you are literally throwing your hard-earned money into the garbage. Furthermore, you have broader financial goals, right? You are trying to save for a vacation or pay down debt. Buying takeout right now directly violates that budget. It violates your nutritional goals.
It violates everything.
It really does. There is absolutely zero logical reason to bypass the fridge and order a pizza. None. Your logical brain is functioning perfectly and giving you the correct instructions.
And yet what happens, you close the refrigerator door, you pull your phone out of your pocket, you open the delivery app, your thumb hovers over the screen for a fraction of a second, you feel a tiny twinge of guilt, but you push right past it. You hit order.
You hit order.
And then while you sit on the couch waiting for it to arrive, you are hit with this bizarre, conflicting mixture of anticipation for the food and profound, crushing disappointment in yourself. You sit there thinking, why am I so irrational? What is wrong with my brain?
This is exactly where we need to stop the tape and validate your experience. If you do this, and let's be honest, we all do this in various forms,
Yeah.
you need to understand right now that you are not stupid.
No, not at all.
You are not broken. The reality is you are simply trying to use the wrong tools to solve the problem. You are trying to use cold logic to resolve an active emotional emergency.
An emotional emergency. I love that phrasing.
Right. It is exactly like trying to remove a screw with a hammer. You can bang on that screw all day long with the hammer of reason, and all you're going to achieve is damaging the wall and exhausting your arm. The battle cannot be won with the tool you are holding.
Okay, that is such a great way to put it. You aren't failing, you're just holding the wrong tool. So if logic isn't the right tool, what is? To answer that, we have to actually define what is happening inside the body.
We need to define the terminology of our internal landscape.
Right. And the source material draws a really critical biological line in the sand between feelings and emotions. I think in everyday conversation, we use those words completely interchangeably, but neurologically, they are entirely different animals. Let's start with feelings. What is a feeling at its core?
At a fundamental biological level, feelings are rapid-fire electrical and biochemical stimuli. They originate entirely in the physical body.
So purely physical.
Purely physical. In neuroscience, this is often related to interoception, which is your brain's perception of sensations inside your body. Feelings are the immediate, localized consequences of something happening to you or around you.
Like raw data.
Exactly. They are incredibly fast, localized data points. You process thousands of them in a single hour without ever consciously registering most of them.
Okay, so if feelings are just raw data, I'm assuming that's the micro stuff, like the sudden tension in my jaw or the fact that my lower back aches because I've been sitting in this chair weirdly for 20 minutes.
Precisely. It is the sudden, random muscle spasm in your calf. It is the sharp itch on the bridge of your nose. It is a brief sensation of heat on your skin, or the sudden fluting drop in your stomach when you pat your pocket and realize your phone isn't there.
Oh man, that phone drop feeling is the worst.
It really is.
Yeah.
But that is exactly what feelings are. They are purely physiological. They are just your peripheral nervous system reporting raw data back to the central nervous system about the state of your physical being in your immediate environment.
Okay, that makes sense. Raw sensor data. But obviously, ordering a $30 pizza when I'm in debt wasn't just caused by an itchy nose or a muscle spasm. So where do emotions come into this biological equation?
Well, while all feelings provide data, not all data requires an emergency response.
Oh.
But when a specific feeling or a rapid combination of feelings indicates something significant, something that the deeper, older parts of your brain interpret as a threat to your survival, your body elevates the response.
It upgrades the alert.
Exactly. This is an emotion. An emotion is the body's complex, systemic, conscious reaction to those raw feelings. It is a massive biochemical event that involves the secretion of powerful hormones.
Like adrenaline.
Adrenaline, cortisol from the adrenal glands, combined with involuntary, widespread muscular reactions. Emotions are the body's way of forcing your conscious mind to pay attention to the raw data of your feelings.
And I try to put this into an analogy to see if I'm tracking. Think of your body like a highly advanced modern car. Feelings are the hundreds of raw data sensors scattered all over the vehicle.
Okay, I like this.
They are constantly measuring tire pressure, engine temperature, oil viscosity, battery voltage, thousands of data points streaming into the computer every second.
Right.
Most of the time, as the driver, you don't need to know that your front left tire pressure fluctuated by 0.2 psi. But if that raw data suddenly indicates that the engine block is overheating, the car doesn't just quietly display a tiny spreadsheet of temperature data on the dashboard.
No, it doesn't.
It triggers an emotion. The emotion is that giant, flashing, bright red check engine light demanding that you pull the car over immediately.
That is a phenomenal analogy because it highlights the compulsory nature of the system. The raw sensor data is the feeling, and the flashing red light and the deafening alarm bell is the emotion.
It's impossible to ignore.
And it's designed to be. Just like a check engine light, emotions are externalized and manifested in the physical body. You do not just think an emotion in your mind, you experience it systematically.
Systematically, meaning the whole body gets involved.
Absolutely. Your heart rate violently shifts, your digestive system literally halts to conserve energy, your pupils dilate to take in more light, your muscles tense in preparation for movement. It is a full-body takeover.
And to really illustrate how intensely and how violently these biochemical events can hijack our bodies, the material shares a really intense personal anecdote about a trip to the hospital.
Yes, this part is incredibly revealing.
Let's walk through that because it perfectly captures how chaotic this biological process can be when the alarms start going off. The scenario is this. The author has to go to the hospital for some highly important medical tests. Right from the moment he wakes up, the stress baseline is high.
He has to get up incredibly early.
Exactly. He gets up early, he hits traffic, he is running late. He knows that if he does not arrive by a highly specific, strict appointment time, he is going to lose the tests entirely, which has major health implications.
So his nervous system is already redlining before he even parks the car.
He finally sprints into the hospital, rushes up to the front desk, hands over his paperwork, and the nurse looks at it and drops an absolute bomb. She tells him his tests aren't scheduled for this hospital. They're scheduled for a completely different hospital facility, a full kilometer down the road.
And this is the moment we need to put under a microscope.
Mm.
We have to deeply analyze the biological chaos that erupts in his body in less than a single second.
It's just a massive wave.
It is. The material details the cascade of massive emotional alarms that trigger almost simultaneously. First, fear. The immediate primal terror of losing the crucial medical appointment.
Right.
Second, anger. The raw, hot rage over the sheer difficulty of getting there only to be turned away by bureaucracy. Third, frustration. The crushing, heavy realization that all his morning effort, the rushing, the stress, was entirely in vain.
And then the shame hits.
Yes. Fourth is humiliation. The sudden, burning shame of realizing he made a stupid mistake and didn't read the address on the paperwork correctly. Fifth, despair. And finally, anxiety.
The anxiety of trying to fix it.
Exactly. The frantic, heart-pounding mathematical calculation of whether his physical body can sprint a kilometer down the street and still make it on time.
Fear, anger, frustration, humiliation, despair, and anxiety. 6 massive system-wide alarms. 6 flashing check engine lights, all going off at the exact same time in under 1 second.
It's overwhelming just to describe it.
Think about the sheer volume of hormones. The massive dump of adrenaline, the flood of cortisol hitting his bloodstream all at once. The conflicting muscular commands.
Right, because his body doesn't know what to do.
Exactly. The body is trying to prepare him to fight the nurse, to flee the building, to hide in a corner out of shame, and to sprint a kilometer like an Olympic athlete, all at the exact same moment.
The sheer physical toll of that is staggering.
It is. The anecdote notes that this cocktail of physiological commands was so overwhelming he literally felt physically ill and nearly fainted right there at the reception desk.
And that is the critical, foundational takeaway for this entire deep dive. Emotions are not just abstract, poetic states of mind. They are intense, taxing, biological events.
They require real energy.
Huge amounts of energy. When he nearly fainted, it wasn't because he was weak-willed or melodramatic or lacking mental toughness. It was because his autonomic nervous system was literally overloaded by the conflicting muscular and endocrine demands of 6 different survival mechanisms firing simultaneously.
His blood pressure was probably just fluctuating wildly.
His vagus nerve was completely overwhelmed. It takes a massive, measurable physical toll on the human body to process an emotion.
It is exhausting just thinking about it. And honestly, it completely reframes how we should look at our own reactions to stress. When you suddenly feel overwhelmed at work or during an argument, you aren't just losing your cool. Your body is undergoing a massive involuntary biochemical event.
It is a biological fact.
So as we wrap up this first section and establish this biological battlefield we are all standing on, I want to turn it back to you, listening right now. When was the last time you felt physically overwhelmed by a stressful situation? And could you name the raw, split-second feelings that hit you before the big emotion took over?
It's a really important question to sit with, because now that we have firmly established the biological reality of what emotions actually are, these incredibly powerful, hormonally driven survival alarms, we have to confront a massive obstacle.
The cultural conditioning.
Exactly. We have to confront the cultural conditioning that makes us so miserable. Because if emotions are just natural biological facts of human existence, why do we struggle with them so much? Why do they cause us so much suffering?
Because we've been lied to.
We have. The answer lies in the deeply ingrained toxic myths we have been taught since childhood about how we're supposed to behave. If we want to stop self-sabotaging, we have to systematically unlearn the cultural lies that cause us to suppress our own biology.
This is where we really start dismantling the programming, and I think this is going to resonate with a lot of people. The source material outlines 4 massive myths about emotion. Let's take them one by one.
Let's do it.
Starting with myth number 1, which is arguably the most universal, the concept of positive versus negative emotions. From the time we are toddlers, we are taught that joy, happiness, gratitude, and affection are good emotions. They are virtuous.
We are praised for them.
Right. And anger, sadness, fear, and disgust are bad emotions. We literally categorize them as moral achievements versus moral failures. We seek out the good ones, and we try to avoid or eradicate the bad ones at all costs.
It's a completely moralized framework.
It is. I mean, growing up, if I was sad, I was told to cheer up. If I was angry, I was told to calm down. The message was clear. Those states are unacceptable.
And that is a fundamentally flawed, actively harmful way of looking at human biology. The material tears down this moral categorization by bringing in heavy-hitting evolutionary science.
Like Charles Darwin.
Yes, specifically his later work on the expression of emotions. It also references William James, Paul Ekman's groundbreaking cross-cultural studies, and Daniel Goleman's extensive work on emotional intelligence. The consensus across all this rigorous research is absolute. All emotions serve a survival function. None of them are inherently bad.
Wait, let's unpack that because it's hard to accept that feeling terrible is actually a good thing. How is sadness a survival tool?
Well, sadness is actually a brilliant biological mechanism. In our ancestral environment, if you suffered a loss or were isolated, sadness physically slowed you down to conserve energy.
So it's an energy-saving mode.
Exactly. And the physical expressions of it, the tears, the slumped posture, they acted as a profound biological SOS signal to the rest of your tribe, indicating, I am vulnerable, I have suffered a loss, I need resources and protection to survive.
Oh, wow. So it literally kept you alive by drawing the tribe to you.
It elicited empathy and cohesion. Anger, similarly, is not a sin. It is a rapid biological preparation, flooding your muscles with blood to defend your boundaries, your food, or your offspring against a perceived threat. Labeling them as negative makes us terrified of our own essential survival mechanisms.
It's exactly like looking at your car's dashboard and saying the fuel gauge is good because it shows you have gas, but the engine temperature gauge is evil because it shows the car is overheating. It makes no sense.
That is a perfect way to look at it.
They are both just giving you data to keep the machine running. Okay, let's move to myth number 2, which I think is the most damaging one in the modern corporate world. The myth that we can, and we absolutely should, control our emotions.
Ah, yes. The myth of control.
We idolize the stoic professional. The person who never shows a crack, who takes a massive loss at work and just nods and says, let's pivot. We equate emotional suppression with professionalism and strength.
And that is a complete, incredibly dangerous illusion of control. You cannot control an endocrine cascade with a polite thought.
You just can't.
To illustrate this, the source offers a vivid analogy. Trying to control your emotions is exactly like trying to hold back the ocean tide with your bare hands.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. You can go down to the beach, plant your feet firmly in the sand, and push against the incoming waves with all your might. You might even feel like you're doing something productive for a few minutes. But the tide is driven by the gravitational pull of the moon. It is a massive, relentless force of nature. It is going to come in regardless of your effort.
And eventually, you just drown.
Precisely. Emotions are biological flows with a specific evolutionary purpose. They are going to happen. When you try to hold back the tide through sheer stoicism, all you do is exhaust your nervous system.
And that has physical consequences, right?
And massive consequences. Stopping that flow produces what clinical psychology calls repressed emotions. And we need to be clear, this isn't just a trendy therapy buzzword. Repressing these biochemical flows causes severe, documented physical and mental damage.
Because the energy has to go somewhere.
Right. You are essentially trapping high-pressure cortisol and adrenaline inside your body with nowhere to dissipate. This leads to an immense allostatic load, which is just wear and tear on the body, and that manifests as chronic inflammation, high blood pressure, and a compromised immune system.
Now, I have to push back on this a little bit on behalf of society. I hear what you were saying about biology, but society tells us constantly that being emotional means you aren't thinking clearly.
It's a common belief.
Right. If I scream at my boss because I'm angry, that is not rational. It will get me fired. And that leads us perfectly into myth number 3, the idea that reason and emotion are complete opposites. The cultural narrative is that emotion is the mortal enemy of logic. If you are emotional, you are, by definition, irrational.
It is a pervasive myth,
Yeah.
but we can completely debunk it by returning to our Wednesday afternoon pizza dilemma. Think back to that moment standing in front of the open fridge.
Okay, I'm there.
You were looking at the broccoli soup, and you were craving the pizza. In that exact moment, are you unaware of your budget? Are you unaware of the nutritional value of the broccoli?
No, I am painfully aware of it. I know I shouldn't buy the pizza. I know I am wasting money. I know the food will spoil. I am doing the math in my head while I hold the phone.
Exactly. The very fact that you know you shouldn't buy the pizza proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that your reasoning skills are functioning perfectly. Your prefrontal cortex is fully online.
So the logic is still there.
Emotion does not block reason. You do not suddenly lose the ability to do basic arithmetic just because you are sad or tired or stressed. The logic is intact.
Okay, wait. If my logic is perfectly intact and I know ordering the pizza is a bad idea that hurts my goals, then ordering the pizza is inherently irrational. Why would my brain force me to do something stupid?
It isn't stupid. It is just operating on a different set of priorities. The reality is that emotion simply takes biological priority over reason.
Biological priority.
Yes. In the hierarchy of the brain, survival mechanisms override long-term planning. The older, deeper parts of your brain perceive your emotional distress as an immediate threat to your survival.
So it's treating a bad day at work like a tiger attack.
In a way, yes. It calculates that the immediate relief of a dopamine hit from the pizza is more critical right now than the abstract concept of your bank account balance next month. We will explore the deep mechanics of this in the next section, but the key takeaway here is that reason and emotion are not opposites fighting for the same space.
They are two different systems.
Exactly. And the emotional survival system simply possesses an evolutionary override switch.
Which brings us to the final and frankly the most insidious myth of all. Myth number 4. The belief that ignoring emotions makes them disappear.
Oh, this one is so destructive.
Just don't think about it, push it down, put on a happy face, fake it till you make it. Time heals all wounds. We operate under this assumption that if we just look away from the dashboard, the check engine light will eventually burn itself out.
And this is where the most profound psychological damage occurs. The material highlights this as the most dangerous myth of all, because ignoring emotions leads directly to somatization and psychological trauma.
Somatization, meaning it shows up in the physical body.
Exactly. Remember, we established that emotions are tangible, biological flows that need to occur. They are kinetic energy designed to move through the physical body and prompt a specific action. When you block them, you do not delete them, you trap them.
It's like putting a cork in a boiling kettle. The steam doesn't just cease to exist, the pressure just builds until the metal fractures.
That is exactly right. You cannot starve a biological imperative. If you ignore the sadness or the anger, it doesn't vanish, it simply mutates. It alters your physical health, disrupts your sleep architecture, degrades your digestive system, and fundamentally distorts the way you perceive reality over the long term.
It just poisons the well.
It does. Unprocessed emotional energy is the root cause of much chronic anxiety and depression.
And to really drive home how deeply biological and inescapable these emotions are, the source material delves into the physical expression of them. It notes that across all cultures, there are generally considered to be 7 basic, hardwired human emotions: joy, sadness, pain, fear, surprise, disgust, and anger.
The fundamental 7.
And I have to point out a brilliant little pop culture observation the author makes here. If you have seen the incredible Pixar movie Inside Out, which is arguably one of the best mainstream explorations of emotional psychology, you'll notice the filmmakers only used 5 characters in the control room.
Right. They use joy, sadness, fear, disgust, and anger.
But surprisingly, they completely left out surprise and pain.
It is an interesting omission by Pixar, especially considering how absolutely foundational surprise and pain are to primitive survival. But what the source material really focuses on regarding these basic emotions is how they physically manifest on our bodies.
And it brings up an unexpected source for this.
It does. Scott McCloud's seminal book, Making Comics.
Yeah, that caught me off guard at first. Why are we referencing a manual on how to draw comic books in a deep dive about emotional psychology and neuroscience?
Because master comic artists have to intuitively understand the microscopic muscular architecture of the human face. To convey complex human experience with ink and paper, McCloud's book details exactly how specific groups of facial muscles contract to express these 7 basic emotions.
And how they combine, right?
Exactly, how they combine into complex emotional matrices.
Right. Because an artist knows that if you just angle the inner part of the eyebrow upward and slightly tighten the corners of the lips, you aren't just drawing a random face. You are explicitly broadcasting a highly specific, universally recognized blend of sadness and anxiety.
Our faces are biologically hardwired to broadcast our internal biochemical state to the world.
And this isn't just a byproduct, it's a feature. This biological broadcast system is literally how human empathy is formed. We read the micro-expressions on someone else's face, our mirror neurons fire in our own brains, and we physically, biologically feel a shadow of their emotion.
It is a brilliant evolutionary survival tool.
It allows social creatures to operate as a cohesive unit. You simply cannot ignore or suppress something that is woven into the very muscular anatomy of your face.
Precisely. You cannot outthink your own evolutionary biology. The sooner we discard these four toxic myths, that emotions are good or bad, that we can control them, that they oppose reason, and that we can ignore them, the sooner we can actually start working with our internal systems instead of constantly fighting a losing, exhausting battle against them.
So as we close the book on these toxic societal myths, I want you to ask yourself a hard, honest question. Which of these myths have you relied on the most to avoid dealing with an uncomfortable feeling? And how is that strategy actually working out for your happiness?
That reflection leads us to a pivotal transition in our understanding. If we accept the premise that we cannot ignore our emotions, and we accept that we cannot control them, like turning a volume dial on a radio, we're forced to fundamentally understand their evolutionary function.
We have to figure out the why.
Exactly. If we want to know why they possess the power to constantly hijack our rational, carefully planned lives, we have to look under the hood of the machine. We have to figure out who is actually driving the car.
This is where the material gets incredibly fascinating and honestly a bit humbling. It presents two distinct yet perfectly complementary concepts to explain how emotions function in the architecture of our daily lives. The first concept comes from the work of Luis Alfonso Ruiz Soto, who defines emotions fundamentally as alarms.
The alarm concept is the bedrock of emotional intelligence. Ruiz Soto posits that emotions act as the ultimate inescapable internal security system.
Like a fire alarm.
Yes. They are alarms indicating exactly what is happening deep within our being, often at a subconscious level, that our busy, conscious mind is ignoring. Let's look at this through a primitive evolutionary lens to understand why they were so forceful.
Okay, let's go back to the savannah.
In our ancient past, roaming the savannah, the emotion of disgust wasn't about disliking a piece of modern art. It was a violent, involuntary biological alarm, warning you that the rotting meat or strange berries you were about to consume were full of pathogens and would kill you.
So disgust kept you from being poisoned.
Exactly. Fear was a blaring alarm that a predator was in the tall grass. Anger was an alarm triggering an adrenaline rush to protect your scarce resources. But importantly, even the emotions we consider vulnerable were alarms.
Like sadness.
Deep sadness or physical pain were crucial alarms broadcasting to your tribe. I am injured. I have suffered a vital loss. I am a liability right now, and I need help and resources to survive.
So, if emotions are alarms, their primary function is to wake us up to a critical problem. But here's the catch. Alarms don't actually fix the problem. A fire alarm doesn't spray water and put out the fire. It just makes an unbearable amount of noise, so you are forced to run out of the building.
Right, it just prompts action.
And that brings us to the second conceptual layer, introduced by Mark Manson in his book, Everything is Fucked. Manson takes Ruiz Soto's idea a massive step further. He says emotions aren't just the alarm bell, they are the engine itself, they are the motor. He introduces the concept of the feeling brain.
Yes, and the source material beautifully synthesizes these two seemingly distinct ideas. At first glance, you might ask, how can an emotion be both an alarm and a motor?
It sounds contradictory.
It does, but the answer lies in the physiological response. The alarm is the catalyst that modifies the biochemical conditions of your body, and that physical modification is the motor that drives you to take action.
Ah, I see.
If the primal alarm of hunger goes off, the motor of anxiety, restlessness, and physical agitation engages to literally, physically propel you out of your cave to hunt or gather. The emotion provides the raw, combustible fuel for the action.
I want to deeply explore this analogy that Manson uses because I truly believe it is the skeleton key to understanding all human self-sabotage. I want you to imagine your mind as a car driving down the long highway of your life. Inside this car, there are two distinct entities.
Okay, let's set the scene.
The first entity is your thinking brain. This is your prefrontal cortex. It is your reason, your logic, your intellect, your ability to do math and project the future. The thinking brain is the passenger.
The passenger.
Yes. It is sitting comfortably in the passenger seat with a beautifully detailed, color-coded topographical map. It has plotted the perfect route, calculated the fuel efficiency, and knows exactly where you want to go in life. It says, okay, our ultimate destination is long-term financial stability, and to get there, we need to take the route of saving 20% of our income and eating the leftover broccoli soup.
That is the highly rational, highly intelligent passenger. But the crucial flaw in our modern self-perception, the reason we hate ourselves when we fail, is that we automatically assume the passenger is driving the car.
We really do.
They are not. The entity sitting behind the steering wheel, with its foot heavily resting on the gas pedal, is the feeling brain, the limbic system, the emotional center. The feeling brain does not care about the passenger's map.
They can't even read it.
In fact, it doesn't even know how to read the map. It only cares about one thing, how things feel right now, in the immediate present moment. And here is the brutal, inescapable reality of human neurobiology. The driver always controls where the car actually goes.
The driver has a wheel.
The passenger can yell logical instructions and cite budget spreadsheets all day long. But if the driver decides to violently turn the wheel and pull into the drive-thru for a pizza, the car goes to the drive-thru.
Which begs the absolute most important question of this entire deep dive. Why? If the thinking brain is so smart, if the prefrontal cortex is the pinnacle of human evolution, and the map clearly says, save money for retirement so you don't starve when you're 80, why does the primitive feeling brain, the driver, have the power to just ignore it and steer us into the drive-thru?
It seems like a design flaw, doesn't it?
It really does. Why does emotion always inevitably beat reason in these internal duels?
The answer lies in the profound physiological cost of thinking. Generating abstract thought, analyzing complex future probabilities, projecting long-term consequences, these actions require the thinking brain to burn an immense amount of metabolic energy.
Specifically glucose.
Specifically glucose. The brain only accounts for about 2% of our body weight, but it consumes 20% of our energy. Thinking is evolutionarily expensive.
It burns a lot of fuel.
In a primitive survival situation, if you stop to logically analyze the caloric value of running away from a charging tiger versus the probability of successfully hiding from the tiger, you get eaten while you are doing the math. Thinking literally paralyzes us because it hoards massive bodily resources to perform slow calculations.
So deep rational thinking is essentially a luxury that paralyzes the body. But what about emotions? How do they operate differently?
Emotions are the exact neurobiological opposite. They do not calculate, they execute. Emotions are geared purely, 100%, for immediate action.
They just go.
They bypass the slow analytical centers and flood the body with the energy and hormones required to move instantly. Therefore, in a biological duel for control of the physical body, the system designed for immediate, forceful, life-saving action will always, without fail, overpower the system designed for slow, resource-heavy analysis. The limbic driver always overpowers the prefrontal passenger.
This is such a profound realization. It explains so much. Our thinking brains are dealing with these highly abstract, incredibly modern concepts. Concepts like productivity, retirement savings, credit scores, macronutrients.
Things that didn't exist 10,000 years ago.
Exactly. These concepts are a mere blink of an eye in human evolutionary history. Our evolutionary brains, our feeling brains, have absolutely no idea what a 401k is. They don't understand the abstract concept of Friday's paycheck when it is only Wednesday.
They only understand right now.
Yes. When you are sitting in your kitchen on a Wednesday evening, feeling exhausted, sad, and perhaps unappreciated by your boss, your feeling brain perceives that emotional distress as an immediate, life-threatening survival crisis. It feels acute pain, and its only biological imperative is to seek comfort and safety now.
It wants relief.
It remembers that the high-fat, high-carb pizza provided a massive, soothing hit of comforting dopamine last month, so it turns the steering wheel toward the pizza. It doesn't care about the abstract concept of your budget, because abstract concepts do not relieve immediate physical distress.
Exactly. The feeling brain is not being malicious. It is not trying to ruin your life or keep you poor. It is simply executing its primary hardwired function. It is taking you where it believes you need to go to survive the immediate distress it is feeling.
It's just trying to save you.
It prioritizes the tangible, immediate relief of the pizza over the abstract, invisible future benefit of saving $20. This is why relying on sheer willpower eventually fails everyone.
Because willpower is just the passenger fighting.
Willpower is just the rational passenger trying to reach across the center console and physically wrestle the steering wheel away from the emotional driver. It requires immense, draining focus, and eventually, through a process known as ego depletion, the passenger runs out of energy, lets go of the wheel, and the driver takes over again.
So knowing all of this, if your feeling brain is driving the car right now, what destination is it desperately trying to reach that your thinking brain is ignoring?
That is the pivotal question. Because if we accept the reality that the feeling brain is driving the car and that endlessly wrestling the wheel away through brute force willpower is a mathematically losing strategy, We are left with a massive internal communication problem.
We have to give directions.
How do we give the driver directions if it doesn't understand the passenger's complex map? If the feeling brain doesn't understand budgets or long-term fitness goals, how do we possibly get it to cooperate? The source material tells us that we have to humble ourselves and learn its primitive language.
We have to learn how to speak to it on its own terms. And the absolute first thing we have to accept in this process is the severe limitation of our own words. We are so accustomed to using spoken language to solve our problems, we talk it out. But emotions do not speak English.
No, they don't.
The material points out something fascinating about the limits of linguistics. If you tried to create an exact, precise word for the specific type of anger you feel, say when a stranger cuts you off in traffic, versus the deep, complex anger you feel when a lifelong friend betrays your trust, that word would need to be 300 to 400 letters long to capture the nuance.
It would be impossible to say.
There would need to be dozens of variations just for the flavor of anger. Words are far too clunky, far too rational to capture the holistic biochemical reality of an emotion.
Because of this severe linguistic limitation, the material introduces a persona for the feeling brain to help us visualize how to communicate with it. It calls the feeling brain the caveman.
The caveman, I love that.
I find this persona incredibly useful because it perfectly encapsulates the nature of the entity we are dealing with. The caveman is ancient. It has absolutely no structured language. It cannot speak in coherent sentences. It cannot debate logic or reason with you. However, it is extraordinarily vividly expressive.
It just expresses differently.
It communicates purely, 100%, in physical somatic sensations.
Somatic sensations. Not thoughts and not ideas, but visceral feelings in the tissue of the body. It communicates through a heavy, leaden feeling in the stomach. A sudden tight knot restricting the throat, a flush of heat spreading across the cheeks, a crushing invisible weight sitting on the chest. That is the caveman's entire vocabulary.
That's all it has.
And the material provides a brilliant, highly practical step-by-step exercise to demonstrate exactly how to establish a working dialogue with this internal caveman. It takes us right back to the Wednesday afternoon kitchen, standing in front of the fridge, looking at the healthy broccoli soup, but desperately wanting the pizza. Let's walk the listener through this internal dialogue step by step, because this is the exact moment where the psychological theory becomes an actionable practice.
Let's walk through it. You are standing there. The intense craving for the pizza hits you. The impulse to self-sabotage is screaming. Instead of fighting it with willpower or immediately giving in and opening the delivery app, you pause. You take a breath, drop your attention out of your racing, rational mind, and focus entirely on your physical body. You initiate the dialogue.
Okay, I'm pausing. I'm feeling my body.
Step 1. You mentally ask your caveman a simple question. Hey, why don't we have the broccoli soup for dinner? And then you wait. You don't try to think of an answer, you just feel your body. And what you notice is a slight involuntary tension in your throat, a mild physical closing off, a somatic rejection.
Okay, so the throat tightens. It's a no, but a no to what exactly? So you refine the search and move to step 2. You ask, do we just not like broccoli soup anymore? Is it the taste? You wait. The tension in the throat softens. It fades away entirely. Okay, so it isn't the soup itself. The caveman doesn't actually hate the food. It is rejecting the moment. It is rejecting the experience of eating that specific meal right now.
Correct. You have eliminated one variable, so you probe deeper into the physical state. Step 3. Then what do you need right now? Are we just physically tired from standing? You wait. Silence. The body gives no physical reaction whatsoever. Okay, it's not simple physical exhaustion.
So we pivot again.
So you pivot, you ask, are we sad? Did we work too hard today without a break? Suddenly, you feel a mixture of acute sensations. The muscles in your shoulders instinctively tense up. You feel a faint, hot, burning sensation radiating in your chest. The feeling is distinct. It is frustration. You are getting warmer.
Now we are zeroing in on the actual bleeding wound. Step 4. You ask, is it because nobody recognized the massive effort we put in this week? Is it because the boss ignored our presentation? And bingo. The absolute second you ask that, the chest tightens significantly. The burning frustration spikes into a hot flash. That physical resonance, that undeniable somatic spike, is the caveman screaming, yes, that is exactly where it hurts.
And now that you have accurately diagnosed the true source of the pain, you can offer a targeted solution. Step 5. You ask, do we believe we deserve a reward, something that makes us feel good and comforted, to offset all that unrecognized effort?
And what happens then?
Immediately, the crushing, tight weight in the chest eases. You feel a wave of physical relief wash over your shoulders, and spontaneously, the image of the hot, comforting pizza flashes into your mind's eye. The caveman has confirmed exactly what it needs. It needs a tangible, immediate reward to offset the painful sting of feeling unappreciated and invisible.
I want to pause here and point out a massive, game-changing realization about this process. Look closely at the architecture of that entire internal dialogue. In this whole process, the rational brain, the passenger, never made a single declarative statement.
No.
It never lectured the body. It never said, broccoli is healthy for our cholesterol or pizza is bad for our debt. It only asked gentle questions, and then it shut up and waited for the caveman to answer with physical sensations. It is exactly like playing a game of hot and cold with your own autonomic nervous system.
That is the absolute brilliance of the exercise. The caveman, the limbic system, cannot lie to you. It doesn't know how to deceive or rationalize because it operates entirely on involuntary biological reflex. When you hit the true source of the emotional pain, the body physically reacts.
The chest tightens or the stomach drops.
That is your undeniable confirmation.
Yeah.
And what you discover through this process is that the caveman has absolutely nothing against your meal prep. It isn't trying to ruin your diet or sabotage your life. What it desperately needs is to feel recognized and soothed after the trauma of a brutal, difficult week. It demands a tangible reward because it is in an active state of emotional distress.
And realizing this changes the entire battlefield. Because if you don't do this exercise, if you skip the dialogue and just rely on brute force willpower, you are fighting the wrong war. If you force yourself to eat the broccoli soup without addressing the caveman's underlying need for recognition and comfort, you are just going to be miserable.
You'll just be suppressing it.
You will aggressively eat the soup, and then 2 hours later, you will probably find yourself binging on a pint of ice cream in the dark because the underlying emotional wound is still bleeding. Listening to those physical alarms, learning that nonverbal somatic language is the absolute only way to properly address the root cause of the behavior.
And once you actually know the root cause, in this specific case, the deep frustration and sadness generated by a lack of professional recognition, you are finally equipped to solve the actual problem, rather than just endlessly fighting the symptoms.
Which is exactly what we are going to do next. But first, I want you to make a promise to yourself. Next time you feel a sudden, irrational urge to break a good habit, can you pause for just 10 seconds to ask your caveman where it hurts?
Because once we had successfully diagnosed the root cause, everything changes. We played the game of hot and cold, we talked to the caveman through somatic markers, and we discovered the truth. The desire for the Wednesday pizza has absolutely nothing to do with physical hunger and everything to do with a desperate psychological need for recognition and reward after a demoralizing week.
So now we know the truth.
Now, armed with that knowledge, we must negotiate a treaty. We have to bring the logical thinking brain and the primitive feeling brain to the negotiating table and create a lasting, effortless behavioral change. This is where the magic happens. The source material introduces the ultimate life-changing solution, the concept of internalizing.
Internalizing. This sounds like some kind of psychological superpower. Let's break down exactly what this means in practical, everyday execution.
Internalizing is the deliberate act of perfectly aligning your emotional drives with your rational logic. It is the process of solving abstract emotional problems using rational tools that satisfy the biological need.
Okay, aligning the drives.
Remember, we established earlier that because the feeling brain is ancient and primitive, it treats abstract, modern problems like feeling unappreciated at a corporate job as if they were immediate physical emergencies. It demands an immediate physical comfort to soothe the pain, like the massive dopamine hit from eating a greasy pizza.
So it's screaming for the pizza.
To internalize, you must acknowledge that emotional emergency as valid, validate the caveman's need for a reward, but then use your highly evolved rational brain to provide a solution that doesn't actively sabotage your broader life goals. You have to negotiate a compromise that satisfies both the driver and the passenger.
Okay, let's take this theory right back to the Wednesday afternoon kitchen. We know the caveman is hurting and wants a reward. If we just throw our hands up, give in, and buy the pizza right now, on Wednesday, we fail. Why? Because the actual problem isn't the pizza itself, the problem is the timing and the context.
Exactly right. The rational brain knows that buying the pizza right now, on a Wednesday, creates immediate food waste because the perfectly good broccoli soup will spoil. It breaks the financial budget.
The math doesn't work.
But more importantly, what happens psychologically 10 minutes after you finish eating the pizza?
Yeah.
You feel an intense, crushing wave of guilt. That guilt completely ruins the psychological benefit of the reward.
It ruins the whole experience.
The caveman doesn't actually get the comfort it was seeking because the thinking brain immediately starts punishing it with shame and self-loathing. It is a catastrophic lose-lose scenario.
So we need to architect a win-win solution. The thinking brain steps up to the negotiating table. It says to the caveman, I hear you. I physically feel your tension. I validate that you are exhausted, frustrated, and you deserve a massive, comforting reward for your hard work this week. You are absolutely right to want that.
Validation is key here.
But if we eat the pizza right now, we waste food and we are going to feel terrible guilt, which ruins the fun. So here's the deal. Here's the compromise. We eat the broccoli soup tonight. But T, I promise you, I swear to you, that this Friday night, when we get paid and there is no food left in the fridge to spoil, we are going to order the biggest, best pizza in town. We are going to put on our absolute favorite movie. We are going to turn off our phones and we are going to celebrate. It will be a genuine, 100% guilt-free reward.
And this negotiation is the absolute crux of internalizing. Notice what you are doing here. You are not depriving the caveman. Deprivation triggers panic. Instead, you are scheduling its needs.
You're just delaying it.
You are making a binding, trustworthy agreement with your own nervous system. When the caveman truly believes that a real, superior, completely guilt-free reward is guaranteed to arrive in the near future, the immediate biological panic subsides.
The alarm turns off.
The acute emotional emergency is neutralized by the rational brain's concrete, reliable plan. The Friday pizza becomes a genuine, restorative reward. Not a sad, desperate, guilt-ridden consolation prize eaten frantically over the sink on a Wednesday evening.
I cannot emphasize strongly enough how liberating this shift is. When you achieve this internal compromise, the entire civil war inside your head just ends. The tension evaporates. You no longer have to use sheer, exhausting willpower to force down the healthy food.
The resistance is gone.
You aren't gritting your teeth, hating your life, feeling deprived and miserable. You sit down and eat the broccoli soup with a profound sense of peace because the caveman is deeply satisfied, knowing that the pizza is secured and scheduled for Friday.
This is the ultimate transformative takeaway of the entire analysis. We do not do things, we do not stick to difficult habits or make good long-term choices just because they are rationally or morally right. If doing the right thing constantly feels like emotional torture and deprivation, you will eventually break and quit. It is biologically inevitable. We consistently do things because it feels right to act, knowing they are right.
It feels right to act.
You have successfully aligned the massive biological motor of the feeling brain with the rational map of the thinking brain. Whether one's painful effort, massive resistance, and constant self-loathing, there is now frictionless clarity. And as the material beautifully points out, there is enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm. Imagine actually being enthusiastic about eating your meal prep instead of resentful. Imagine going to the gym not out of guilt, but because you've negotiated a win-win with your body. It changes the entire texture and quality of your daily life. Now, we want to take a moment to validate your journey as you try to implement this. This is a brand new skill.
It takes practice.
It is literally like learning a foreign language. It will not be perfect on the first try. Tomorrow, you might try to talk to your caveman, and you will get the somatic signals crossed. You might confuse genuine physical hunger with emotional emptiness. You might confuse deep systemic exhaustion with simple laziness. You will make mistakes and misinterpret the data.
And that is perfectly, completely okay. The goal here is not immediate, flawless perfection. The goal is opening the lines of communication. Every single time you pause, even for just 10 seconds, to ask your body what it actually needs, instead of blindly reflexively reacting, you are strengthening a new neural pathway.
You are building trust.
You are building vital trust with your feeling brain. Over time, with practice, those crossed signals will become crystal clear. You will stop fighting a war against yourself, and you will begin to build a life that feels authentically, entirely your own. A life where your logic and your emotions are finally operating on the exact same team.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of your own mind, I want to leave you with one final, highly personal question to ponder over the next few days. What is one area of your life right now where you are relying entirely on exhausting willpower? And how could you negotiate a win-win with your caveman instead?
Before we officially sign off, I want to leave you with a broader, perhaps much more provocative thought to chew on. We've spent this entire time talking about the individual, your personal kitchen, your specific pizza cravings, your internal caveman. But let's zoom out for a second and look at the macro level. Look at the world around us.
Zoom out.
We are currently living through an unprecedented global modern epidemic of burnout. Everyone is exhausted, everyone feels perpetually stuck, anxious, and overwhelmed. What if this massive societal epidemic isn't a failure of our productivity apps, or a lack of time management skills, or a failure of our work ethic?
What if it's something else entirely?
What if it is a mass, collective failure of communication with our inner cavemans? We have built a hyper-modern world that exclusively worships the thinking brain, logic, output, efficiency, data, and completely ruthlessly dismisses the feeling brain as an inconvenience.
We just ignore the alarms on a global scale.
Exactly. What if our collective societal exhaustion is simply the result of billions of emotional motors being constantly, relentlessly ignored and suppressed? Think about the incredible world-changing power we could unlock if we all just stopped to listen to where it hurts.
That is a staggering thought, and exactly why we do this show. To uncover those massive connections. But, as always, don't simply take our word, put everything you heard here to the test. Make this knowledge truly yours.
Try talking to your caveman this week. Pause and feel those somatic markers.
And when you do, we want to hear about it. I invite you to share your ideas, your thoughts, and experiences in the comments section below. If you had an aha moment today, if this helped you understand yourself a little better, please like this podcast. And if you want to keep exploring these fascinating ideas with us, make sure to subscribe to learn more about similar topics. We are building an incredible community here, and we want you to be a deeply connected part of it. Remember, the power is yours.